Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible to all of you? I hope I am audible to everyone in the room. Um, okay, thank you for responding. Uh, all right, I have a few students still entering the class. Those who are already in the class, make sure you're working on the link that I have shared. Start working on the opening activity. I will reshare the link once again in the chat box so that those who just entered can also work on it. Once you have completed, you can send your submissions to me via mail or a screenshot on the WhatsApp. Anything is fine. So we will wait for 3 minutes for you to go to the activity and complete it. Let's complete and share our work in the next 3 minutes. Please let me know if you haven't received the link. I can reshare it in the chat box. Okay, our time is up for the activity link that I had shared. So please take the last few seconds to wrap up your work and come back to the call. I will now be sharing my screen so that you can see the agenda for today. Sorry, it's too many tabs open. Okay, just write saying that you are back in the chat box so that I know that we can get started. I can see that Shraddha is back. Great. Nikita, Juhi, Shavani, Bushra, Aishwarya, all are back. All right, I think we are good to go then. As you see on the agenda, whatever we'll be discussing today is actually going to help you cover module 28 to 30. Okay. Now here is a clear instruction. Please pay attention to what I'm saying. When I'm saying that I'm covering these modules in the live class, that means all you have to do is, if you haven't completed these modules, go to Edmodo and just do the assignment of that module. No need to go through each and every lecture video because then it will be repetitive. Unless you want to repeat and revise, that's up to you. But what I expect you to do is, if you have attended this live class, you should have submitted the assignments of these modules. Is that clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So we are going to do one recap question, which is going to check whether you remember all that we studied last week in our live classes or not. It's almost like a daily review that we do in a normal class. Then we'll do quick check for understanding with difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So this weekend, I was actually going through your assignments from the unit that we are doing now, that is from module 22 to 32, 33, I checked. And I noticed that some of you have some confusion around prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So this question will clarify those misconceptions. Then we will review the rest of the cell organelles that are left, that is centrioles, centrosomes, MTOCs. We'll see what MTOCs are. Then permanent vacuoles, cell wall, and plasmodesmata. After doing all of that, we'll do a quick quiz up of all the cell organelles. So that's the plan for today. With that, let's begin with our recap question. So first, I want you to take a few seconds and look at the diagram on the right-hand side of the screen. And in the chat box, just share keywords or phrases that come to your mind when you look at this diagram. Looking at this diagram, what information are you gaining, or how will you give a title to this diagram? What does this diagram tell you? You can start sharing now. Let's see what everyone is thinking. Okay. Shravani says protein synthesis. Yes, proteins are being synthesized. Okay, Shraddha says this is the endomembrane system. Correct. Any other thoughts or keywords coming to your mind? It could be particularly about a structure that you are finding prominent. Protein synthesis, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, ribosomes, the organelles, okay? Then you're seeing lysosomes, okay? Just waiting for last few responses. Golgi body. Okay. So basically my point was to bring your attention towards all the organelles that we studied last week, like all of you have mentioned, and how these organelles are interdependent or they are coordinating with each other to do one main function, that is synthesizing a protein and delivering it to the place where it is needed, or synthesizing the protein and delivering it in the form so that it can do its function. So for that, we require the DNA in the nucleus. We require the RNA, the mRNA, which carries the information from the nucleus to the endoplasmic reticulum. And then we require the ribosomes on the endoplasmic reticulum, which help in assembling the amino acids to form the polypeptide chain. Finally, these polypeptide chains are packaged and transported to the cis phase of the Golgi body, where the Golgi body takes it up, processes, and finally packages the protein in another transport vesicle, or sometimes if it's an enzyme, wraps it up in a lysosome, and then the lysosome is budded off from the transporting phase of the Golgi body. If the object inside the lysosome is required to digest something inside the cell, it will fuse with the phagosome or break down worn out mitochondria. So this is all the whole chain or step-by-step process of how protein is synthesized and then how it is used by the cell. So overall, we say that the nuclear envelope, the membrane of the endoplasmic reticulum, and the membrane of the Golgi body, they are functioning together along with the ribosome. So we call them as the endomembrane system. So within the cell membrane, there is cytoplasm and there are more membranes which are interacting with each other. Endoplasmic reticulum's membrane, Golgi's membrane, and the transport vesicles which are budding off along with the cell's own membrane. They together, they are forming the endomembrane system. Okay, with this, let's look at this question. So I have pulled out this question from task 28.4 of your Edmodo module. You will find this in module 28. And let's take a moment to first look at this diagram. This is a outlined sketch of yeast-like fungus. So fungus can be unicellular or multicellular. This is a yeast-like fungus called Candida. Candida is a unicellular fungus. Yeast is also a unicellular fungus. Now, the features are shown in this figure 3, and you have been asked, it's also told that they are found in the human lungs. It is a causative agent for one of the opportunistic infections that may develop during HIV. So if a person is HIV positive, that is they have the human immunodeficiency virus, or if they're suffering from AIDS, then there is a high possibility that this fungus will infect the person's lungs and cause lung or respiratory diseases. The yeast-like fungus has been labeled with H, J, L, and K. You have to identify what are these parts from H to L. So let's take a minute and start sharing in the chat box. Make sure you share everything in one message. So you share what is H, what is J, what is K, and what is L in one message in your chat box. Let's go. I'm looking at your responses now. Waiting for some more seconds. Bushra, your H is wrong. Observe and write. Alfia, what is H? Shraddha, your answers are correct. Pooja, J is wrong. Everything else is fine. Closely observe before writing your answer. Sakshi, H is not correct. Everything else, and Sakshi, your K is also not correct. Shravani, what you have written for H is actually right. There's nothing to be confused. Shravani, you have not mentioned what is K. Aishwarya, everything is correct. Good. Pooja, J is, yes, you're right now, Pooja. And Shravani, which one are you calling vacuole? Which letter? Nikita, everything is correct. Only your L spelling is wrong and K is wrong. Okay, I'm going to type the answers now. So H is not nucleus. It is the nucleolus. Okay, please don't type any answers anymore now. Just see my answer. Then we have J. J is your Golgi body or Golgi apparatus. After that, you have K. And remember, fungus, like plant cells, they also have cell wall. Only difference is the fungal cell wall is not made up of cellulose, it's made up of chitin. Okay. Then we have L, and L can be called vacuole, or you can say tonoplast. Tonoplast is the membrane that forms the boundary of the vacuole. So you have to keep in mind which are the organelles who have their own boundaries and what is the name of their boundaries. Just like nucleus boundary is called nuclear envelope or nuclear envelope. Similarly, endoplasmic reticulum has a double membrane. Then mitochondria and chloroplast have their own inner and outer membrane. Just like that, permanent vacuoles have their own membrane called the tonoplast. So this is 4 marks. Based on how many you give correct answers, you will get your marks accordingly. Now let's look at bit 2. State 2 ways in which the structure of prokaryotic cells differ from that shown in figure 3. Now when you read this question, there is a hint hidden in this question. The hint is that they are asking you how is a prokaryotic cell different from this cell. That means this cell is a eukaryotic cell. So if you're confused, what should I write? Think about what are the features of a eukaryotic cell and which of these features are not there in prokaryotes. Okay, so I'll give you 1 minute to type very quickly and give me 2 clear differences between prokaryote and eukaryote. You can just say things which are different in prokaryote, 2 different things as compared to eukaryotes. Start. Try to share in one message. Bushra, first part difference is correct, second is wrong. Aishwarya, second part is wrong, first part is correct. Alfia, second part is wrong, first part is correct. Sakshi, you are right. You will get 2 marks if you write this in your exam. No, Sakshi, second part is partially correct. Something about the organelles you forgot to mention. So you will get 1, Sakshi. Shraddha, cells have flagellum. Shraddha, your answers are wrong. Partially some patches are correct, but that will be considered as wrong. Juhi, you will get half mark because only about prokaryotes what you have written is correct. What you have written about eukaryote is half correct. Shravani has written. Shravani, you have written both the differences correctly. Okay. Okay. Sakshi, no, that's wrong. All right. I will wait for you all to stop sharing so that I can share the answer. So I want everyone to listen to me carefully. That's okay if you haven't done it on Edmodo. I want you to understand this here so that you don't have to do it on Edmodo once again. Okay. Pooja, about the cell size, you are correct. Alfie, I will tell you where the mistake is. Listen to me. Okay. Now, the biggest mistake or misconception students have is they think that prokaryotes are unicellular and eukaryotes are multicellular. That is wrong. Remember that in the whole kingdom of life, all your living organisms are divided into 3 domains or 3 categories. One category out of those 3 is all the prokaryotes, and the other 2 categories are eukaryotes. Okay. Now, all prokaryotes are unicellular. Listen to me carefully. All prokaryotes are unicellular, but all eukaryotes may be unicellular, may be multicellular. Okay. Let me give you an example. The example of prokaryotes are bacteria and archaebacteria. Archaebacteria are those kind of bacteria which possess chlorophyll pigments. They can perform their own photosynthesis. Okay. So these are all prokaryotic organisms who are unicellular. They don't form tissues, they don't have organs, they are single celled and all the life processes happen inside one cell. So all prokaryotes are unicellular, but you can't use it as a difference because there are eukaryotes who are unicellular. Example, amoeba. Example, paramecium. Example, malaria parasite, that is your plasmodium. They are all unicellular and they are all eukaryotes. Another example is right in front of your eyes, this question. Okay, this question is giving you an example of an yeast-like fungus which is unicellular. But is it a prokaryote? No, it is a eukaryote. So it is wrong to say that prokaryotes are unicellular, so that is a difference. Wrong. Then within this misconception, there is another misconception that students tell because prokaryotes don't have a nucleus, they are unicellular. This is absolutely wrong. Calling something unicellular has nothing to do with the nucleus. Okay, never say that because something doesn't have a nucleus, that's why it is unicellular. The meaning of unicellular means that the whole organism's entire metabolism happens within one cell. That means that one cell is an independent entity. Within that cell, all life processes will happen. That cell doesn't depend on other cells to do some of its work. Okay. So one misconception that we need to completely cross out is saying that prokaryotes are unicellular, but eukaryotes are multicellular. That is wrong because eukaryotes may be unicellular or multicellular. They are both. Possibilities are there that they can be anything. So we can't say that as a difference. We cannot say that something is unicellular because it doesn't have nucleus. No, wrong. Try to understand the real difference. The real difference is prokaryotes don't have a well-defined nucleus. What does that mean? That means that prokaryotes will have DNA, will have chromatin, but they don't have a nuclear envelope. Their genetic material is found in the cytoplasm itself. On the other hand, eukaryotes have a well-defined nucleus, so their genetic material is inside the cytoplasm, but in its own compartment. That is the nuclear envelope. This is the first correct difference. Prokaryotes don't have a well-defined nucleus. Eukaryotes have a well-defined nucleus with a nuclear envelope. First difference. Second difference. Second difference is eukaryotes have other organelles as well as nucleus which have their own membranes. So we say that eukaryotic cells have membrane-bound organelles. But prokaryotic cells don't have membrane-bound organelles. All their organelles are, they don't have membranes around them. The nucleus itself doesn't have, there's no nucleus only because there's no nuclear envelope. There are ribosomes in the prokaryote, and there are certain infoldings in the cell itself which behave like mitochondria and chloroplast, but they don't have their own mitochondria or chloroplast or endoplasmic reticulum. So in short, you can say prokaryotes lack a well-defined nucleus. Prokaryotes lack membrane-bound organelle. There is a third difference. The third difference is if you compare a unicellular eukaryote and a prokaryote, which is always unicellular, the size of the prokaryotic cell is very small as compared to this average size of any eukaryotic cell. Even the smallest eukaryotic cell would be larger than a bacteria. A bacteria is a prokaryote. Okay, so look at the chat box. I will be typing the 3 correct differences and try to always emphasize on this. That is, prokaryotes lack well-defined nucleus. This is the first difference. Second difference, prokaryotes lack membrane-bound organelles. Okay, instead of saying they lack mitochondria, they lack endoplasmic reticulum, instead of saying all the organelles name, just give a general statement. Third difference is cell size of prokaryotes are smaller than an average eukaryotic cell. This is the only 3 difference which will be considered as valid points. Not difference about flagella, difference about cilia, it's wrong. There are eukaryotic cells, you don't know about them. That doesn't mean that eukaryotes don't have flagella. Eukaryotic unicellular cells are there who have flagella. They perform their movement and locomotion because of the flagella. Okay. At this point, do you have any questions? Please unmute and ask. Don't worry, we have time. No questions. Your misconceptions got clarified or not? The unicellular thing. Is that clear now? Or is there a chance that you will write that in exam again? Calling something unicellular means that it is single-celled. A prokaryote is always unicellular. A eukaryote may be a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism. Keep that in mind. So never write that in the difference. Let's look at, okay. Thank you for responding, Pooja. Now, when I look at question number B, it says Candida albicans uses a transport protein TMP1 to absorb sugar molecules from the inside of the mouth. So this, let's say this Candida albicans has infected a person's lungs. So it can easily infect into the lungs through your mouth or through the nose. If the fungus is in the person's mouth, then whenever the person is consuming any food, the yeast will try to absorb the sugar from the person's mouth. Reason? Every organisms need sugar to break it down and make their own ATP or energy. That is the cellular respiration process, right? In cellular respiration, glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide and water and ATP. And that ATP is used by your cells to do other chemical reactions. So even the fungus needs to survive. So what it will do, it will steal the sugar from the person's mouth. How? We are looking at this fungus. This is a unicellular organism. That means it will take all the sugar by diffusion. Sugar from the person's mouth will move into the cytoplasm of this yeast through the cell membrane. Now, our cell membrane is semi-permeable. It will not allow glucose to easily pass through. So it needs proteins in the cell membrane space. So just look at this line below K, the double line. This is the cell membrane. And the cell membrane has different membrane proteins. One of them is TMP1, okay? So this is transmembrane protein 1. The job of transmembrane protein is it is like a funnel so that the glucose can, sugar from the person's mouth will enter from the outside to the inside of this yeast cell. Now, we all know that whatever proteins our cell produces, actually the secret code for that protein is hidden in our DNA. So in Candida, the Candida's gene, that is the DNA which is in the nucleus, the gene codes for this TMP1 protein. TMP1 is encoded by a gene within the nucleus and it is produced when sugars are present in the surrounding. So what the DNA does, when it senses that there is sugar in the surrounding of the cell, only then it will start producing the mRNA. Okay, the mRNA will then move to the cytoplasm, coordinate with ribosomes and endoplasmic reticulum, and then do the several stages to produce this transmembrane protein 1. So this question is just basically asking how are these structures that are shown in the figure 3, how are they involved in finally giving the outcome, that is the TMP1 protein production, and how will this TMP1 do its function. Okay, so for this one, I want you to look at how the answer key states how you should respond to this question. So let us look at bit B answer. So you will be able to answer bit B with more better vocabulary once you study about DNA and RNA in unit 6. So don't worry about the difficult terms that are there in the answer, but look at the overall pattern in which the answer is described step by step. So first thing that this is, in the nucleus, DNA will produce RNA. So instead of saying complementary, you just say DNA codes for RNA. This is the mRNA. Then remember when we studied about nucleus, I told you what passes through the nuclear pore? The mRNA. It will pass from the nucleus to the cytoplasm through those holes on the nuclear envelope. Then where will it go? It will associate with the ribosome. Where is the ribosome? It is attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, which is the RER. Okay. Then what is the job of the mRNA RER? They will together coordinate with each other and assemble amino acid in long chains. If you remember, we saw that diagram of ribosome joining amino acids in a long thread. So that process is actually called protein synthesis. So a new protein or polypeptide will be formed. This new polypeptide will now be captured inside the cisternae of the endoplasmic reticulum. Endoplasmic reticulum will surround it with the membrane and form a transport vesicle. This transport vesicle will then bud off, and where will it go next? It will go and join at the cis face of the Golgi body. Then the Golgi body will accept this polypeptide, process, package, and then surround it with vesicle and release it from its transphase. Then this vesicle carrying our final TMP1, the protein over here is the TMP1 protein. It will carry, the vesicle will carry the TMP1, float and go to the cell membrane, and then it will fuse with the cell membrane. We want the TMP1 to attach to the cell membrane. Why? Because if the TMP1 is at the cell membrane, then the glucose from the mouth will enter the yeast. Okay, so that's the function. We want the transmembrane protein to reach to its destination and start doing its job. So Golgi body will send the vesicle to the cell membrane so that the TMP1 goes and assembles or embeds itself in the cell membrane and then starts transporting glucose into the cytoplasm because the yeast needs those glucose. Okay. And for all of this process to happen, lots of ATP is spent by your cell. So you can talk about that also. That's mentioned in the last point. So I'll give you a minute to read through the answer once again. And if you have any questions, you can ask me now. If there is any step where you are getting confused, you can ask. So the question was, looking at figure 3, how will you describe the organelles which are shown in the diagram? How are they helping in production of TMP1 and function of TMP1? So here your highlight should be on DNA, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, and Golgi. At this point, if you have any questions, please let me know. Shravani, you don't need to understand what glycosylation is, but just roughly if you want to know, glycosylation means adding a short polysaccharide to the protein. So if you remember, on a cell membrane, there are proteins which have polysaccharide or carbohydrate chains attached to them. We call them as glycoprotein. So basically TMP1 is a glycoprotein, and the endoplasmic reticulum cannot add that carbohydrate chain. So it sends the TMP1 to the Golgi. Golgi does this final modification and editing. And if a protein needs to attach with a carbohydrate, that process is called glycosylation, and that happens in the Golgi cistern. Does that make sense? Glycosylation basically means joining any biomolecule with a short chain of carbohydrates. Here a biomolecule which is being made is a protein. So the protein is getting glycosylated. Okay, so I don't think you have any further questions. Let's move on to the next thing in our agenda. I think we have discussed this. So basically you have to understand, to not be confusing about prokaryotes and eukaryotes. One thing you have to remember, that the entire living kingdom has two types of cells. And based on those two types of cells, we have divided them into two categories, that is prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Pro means before, karyon means nucleus. That means these are organelles which originated or formed on earth before. These are cells which formed very, very anciently. So we all are actually somewhere or the other related to the prokaryotes. We are descendants of the prokaryotes. So it is said that before nucleus was formed in the cell, the organisms which lived on earth were all prokaryotes. That's why prokaryon. That's how their name comes. Eu means true. So eukaryotes are organisms which have a true nucleus. That is, they have a well-defined nuclear envelope inside which the genetic materials are enclosed. So a quick look at the meaning of a prokaryote. Any organism which lacks a distinct membrane bound nucleus as opposed to a eukaryote is called a prokaryote. And a eukaryote is a single celled or multicellular. Notice this. These are organisms who contain membrane bound nucleus as opposed to a prokaryote. Let's take a quick look at all the differences. So you can also highlight the difference about ribosomes. Prokaryotes have only 70S ribosomes, whereas here also students make mistake. Students just write eukaryotes have 80S, but actually eukaryotes have both 70 as well as 80S ribosomes. So if you notice the last point, this is where we always have answered wrongly. Be careful about it. I remember someone in the chat box had also shared that prokaryotes had 70S ribosomes and eukaryotes have 80S ribosome. I just want to remind you that eukaryotes have mitochondria and chloroplasts in them, and the mitochondria and chloroplasts have 70S ribosomes. So we cannot say that eukaryotes have only 80S. They have both 70 and 80S ribosomes. Look at the size. Prokaryotes are just 1 to 5 micrometers, whereas eukaryotes are 10 to 100 micrometers in diameter. The DNA is something very interesting. In case of bacteria or any other prokaryote, the DNA is not a long thread, it's a circle. They have a circular DNA. So, and also apart from a main circular DNA, they have many small DNA which are called plasmids. And eukaryotes have these plasmids only inside their chloroplasts and mitochondria, not freely in the cytoplasm. Also, another thing about eukaryotes is that their DNA is not circular, their DNA is linear, like a thread. Okay. Let's look at this question. A biology student views several different prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells under a microscope. How do the prokaryotic cells appear different from the eukaryotic cells? A. Prokaryotic cells have a mitochondria. B. Eukaryotic cells have a cytosol. C. Prokaryotic cells are smaller than eukaryotic cells. D. Eukaryotic cells have ribosomes and prokaryotic cells do not have a ribosome. I want you to take 5 seconds to look at which option is correct because I'm going to cold call. Are you ready to answer? Oh, okay. Some of you have already shared the answer in the chat box and you are right. So I want Bushra to share. What do you think?
Is it C?
No, I want answer, not question. You give your answer and I'll tell it is right or wrong.
C.
Yes, C is the correct answer because all the other options are wrong. Prokaryotes don't have mitochondria. Eukaryotes have cytosol and prokaryotes also have cytosol. And D is wrong because prokaryotes also have ribosomes. Ribosomes are non-membrane bound. So they will be there in prokaryotes also. So the correct answer is C. Look at cell A and B, everyone. Read the labelings. Okay. Let me show you the question now. Which of the following statement is true regarding cells A and B? Neither cell A and cell B are eukaryotic because they have flagella. Cell B is eukaryotic because it has a nucleus. Cell A is eukaryotic because it has DNA. Both cell A and cell B are eukaryotic because they have ribosomes. 5 seconds to think and I will cold call. This time I want Juhi to share her answer. Juhi, what do you think?
I think it's C.
Cell A is eukaryotic because it has DNA.
No, wait.
Is that your answer?
Yeah, that's what I said.
No, C is wrong. C is wrong answer. Nikita, you want to try?
I think it's B.
Second option.
Yes.
And what is your reason?
Because eukaryotic cell, they have nucleus, and prokaryotes do not.
Correct. The answer is B because eukaryotic cells have a well-defined nucleus, whereas prokaryotic cells have DNA. That's why C is wrong. Prokaryotes also, I just told you that bacteria have circular DNA. So prokaryotes have DNA, but their DNA is not enclosed in a nuclear envelope. Okay, so the answer is B. All right. How much time? We have about 10 minutes. Let's see how many organelles we can discuss today. Starting with the first structure, I would call them as many tube-like threads all across your cytoplasm, and together they perform a very important function. That is, just like every city has highways and roadways, the microtubules are like roadways for different organelles to move across the cytoplasm and go to one place, go from one place to another. Okay, so we are talking about the MTOCs. Full form is microtubules and microtubule organizing centers. Okay, on the right hand side is a diagram of how these microtubules are formed. So each circular ball represents a protein. The name of this protein is tubulin. Okay, many proteins organize themselves in ring-like structures to form cylinders, and when these cylinders reach a certain length, they stop, and more cylinders like this are formed. Together they stack up and they form the microtubules. Let's read about them. So what are these microtubules? Microtubules are long hollow tubes that are made up that make up the cytoskeleton, which helps determine the shape of the cell. So your cell has a particular shape, even if it's flexible, it has a particular shape, just like how your endoskeleton is defining the shape of your body. Similarly, inside your cell cytoplasm, there are these network of microtubules which form a skeleton called the cytoskeleton, and they decide the shape of your cell. What are these microtubules made up of? So your cytoskeleton is made up of microtubules, but the microtubules are made up of a protein called tubulin. Now there are two types of tubulin, alpha and beta tubulin. The alpha and the beta tubulin in this diagram, they are shown as dark blue and light blue spheres or beads. So when an alpha and a beta tubulin bond with each other, they may be bonding by electrostatic bonds or weak interactions, but they bind with each other and they form a dimer. Okay. Now these dimers will again bond with many more dimers to form these hollow cylindrical structures, as you see in figure on the right side of the screen. These dimers will then join end to end to form a polymer. This polymer is now called a protofilament. Okay, so from dimer, they form a protofilament. And then 13 protofilament are just many dimers lined back to back. Okay. If 13 such protofilaments join, they will form a cylinder. That one cylinder is called a microtubule. Like that, millions of microtubules will form your cytoskeleton. I hope you're getting an idea of how from small to big, how is this microtubule being built. From alpha beta tubulin joining to form dimer, many dimers joining in a chain to form a protofilament, 13 protofilaments interacting with each other to form a cylinder. That cylinder is called a microtubule. Like that, thousands of microtubules form a network to form your cell's cytoskeleton. Font in blue is always the function. So what is the function of these microtubules? They are intracellular, within the cell transport system. Okay. What is the function of this transport system? They will help. You just saw how transport vesicles from Golgi body or endoplasmic reticulum, they are moving from one organelle to another. So they need a path, they need a direction or a guideline. These microtubules are like railroads for these transport vesicles to move and reach their destination. So that's the function. At this point, any questions about microtubules? Please ask. No questions? Are we good to go then to the next slide? Okay, next slide. We are continuing. Here is a false colored electron micrograph image of, you can see actually 2 cells fully, and there are other cells whose corners are visible. So if you were able to just delete all the organelles from the cell and just see the nucleus and the cytoplasm, all the yellow lines that you're seeing, these are the microtubules in your cell. So you can see that in your jelly-like cytoplasm, which looks transparent, it's actually not transparent. There is a huge branched network of microtubules which are forming railroads or pathways for organelles and vesicles to move around. Okay. Now let's look at a more particular type of microtubule in your cell, which performs a very important function. So this is the centriole and centrosomes. We name the centrioles and centrosomes always in a pair because centrosome is the region where the centrioles are formed. Okay. So just outside the nucleus of an animal cell, there are 2 tiny hollow cylindrical structures. These hollow cylindrical structures are not long and branched like the rest of the microtubules. They are short, cylindrical, and they will be found in right angles. So if one you can see vertical, the other one will be horizontal. They are always found near the nucleus. And another interesting thing is they are only found in animal cells, not in plant cells. Okay. So these cylindrical structures look like this, if you can see on the right hand side of your screen. Their length is about 500 nanometers and their thickness is about 200 nanometers. Okay. And look at their structure. They are not those 13 protofilament like structure that you saw here. Okay. Here the microtubules are just long chains of tubulin dimers. But look at the centriole. First, the protofilaments form a triplet, then the triplets form a ring. Okay, so we call this as 9 triplet microtubule structure. Means there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 triplets of protofilaments arranged in a circle to form a cylinder. This is one centriole, and the other centriole will always lie perpendicular. Look at this electron micrograph. You can see one centriole in longitudinal section and the other centriole has been cut in the other axis. So you can only see its protofilaments, the mouth, you can just see the edge. Does it make sense to you, the electron micrograph image. So in a 3-dimensional space, if the centrioles are like this, one is like this and the other one is like this, when you take a section, the one which is like a cylinder, you can see its length, and the one which is facing you, the hollow part, you can only see the ring. That's how the electron micrograph appears. And every animal cell will have at least one pair of centrioles in the normal resting stage. And where will you find the centriole? Near, very close to the nuclear envelope. But they are in the cytoplasm, not inside the nucleus. Okay? They are absent in plant cells. And the main function of these centriole is that when our cells also grow and divide. Okay, that's how we grow. When we were a newborn baby, the number of cells in our body was lesser than the number of cells that we have now. Reason is our cells divide and we grow in size. So when our cells are dividing, the DNA also has to divide into 2 halves. That is, the chromosome has to divide. So these centrioles actually form long fibers. They grow and become long and touch the DNA and divide it into 2 halves. Here, look at the diagram at the bottom of your slide right now. You can see the blue color wing-like structures. These are the chromosomes, and the yellow lines are the spindle fibers. So the centrioles actually produce these spindle fibers and separate chromosomes when the cell is dividing into 2. So throughout the life cycle of the cell, the centriole is resting. But when the cell needs to divide, that's when the centriole becomes very active. It moves to the opposites. It divides into 2. You have 2 centrioles. So one centriole stays over there. Other one goes to the opposite side of the nucleus, and they pull the chromosomes into 2 halves by forming spindle fibers. Spindle means threads, like the spindle around which your thread is coiled while you're sewing in your sewing machine, just like that. So your centrioles form the spindle fiber. Then what is the centrosome? If you look at point number 2, the region where the centrioles are located, that area is called the centrosome. So centrosome is actually an empty OC, means it is a microtubule organizing region. So in the centrosome, the microtubules will organize in this 9+3 pattern, triplets, and form the centriole. That's the main difference. So you have to be clear about the difference between centriole and centrosome. Centrioles are these 2 cylindrical microtubules which form spindle fiber when your cell is dividing. Centrosome is the area. Can you see these green lines? These are the microtubules or the spindle fibers which are being produced. All of these microtubules are produced in one patch. That area is called the centrosome. That's why centrosome is called an MTOC, or a microtubule organizing center. This is where all your cells microtubules are actually forming and spreading out as skeleton. Some are becoming microtubules, some are becoming centrioles. At this point, do you have any questions or clarifications about what is centriole, what is centrosome, what is their function? I'll take you to the previous slide so you can read once again. Any questions about centrioles and centrosomes? Okay, let's then move forward. We come to another important organelle. The previous one was found only in animal cell, not in plant cells. This is permanent vacuole. So these are very important organelles for plant cells, because we know plants, when they perform photosynthesis, they need water. Okay, so every time they can't wait for the water to come from the roots to the leaves, they have to store some amount of water in the cell itself. And this storage organ is the vacuole, permanent vacuole. In plant cells, the permanent vacuole is very large and it is so large that it pushes the rest of the cytoplasm towards the edge or peripheral region of the cell. So you can see this is one single plant cell, and it has two vacuoles actually. And because of these two vacuoles, the nucleus, the cytoplasm, the chloroplast, everything has been pushed to the sides towards the wall. What is inside this vacuole? Inside this vacuole, you'll find glucose, sucrose, and water, and other minerals like sodium, potassium, different salts. Okay. So basically, the vacuole is the place which maintains the osmotic balance of the cell. If the vacuole swells, the cell will swell. If the vacuole loses its water content to the cytoplasm and the cytoplasm is using up all the water, then the cell will shrink. So if the vacuole is not maintaining the osmotic balance, then the shape of the plant cell overall will either become flaccid or turgid. Okay. Now, the vacuole is a membrane-bound organelle, and the name of the membrane is tonoplast. Take a look at the 3 points and notice what is the name of all the solution inside the vacuole. Ions, sugar, pigments, everything together mixed with water, dissolved in water, is called the cell sap. The function is it gives turgidity to cell and supports the plant. So whenever the plant needs water or the cytoplasm needs water, water molecules will move from the inside of the vacuole to the cytoplasm. Now, these vacuoles can be modified in different plants. So interestingly, some vacuoles become not only storage organ for water, but they also start storing large amount of starch. So these vacuoles are then called leucoplast. You will find them in potato. When you see a potato slice under a microscope, you will see lots, the cells contain lots and lots of leucoplasts. These are modified vacuoles. Why modified? Because instead of just containing water and pigments and sugar, they only contain starch. They are starch containing vacuoles. Then there are, all plants have another modified vacuole, that is the chloroplast. So actually chloroplast in original ancient time of evolution, the chloroplasts have actually evolved from vacuoles to have chlorophyll as a pigment. Okay. Then there are other plants who have vacuoles which are called chromoplasts, and they contain colors. So one example is your beetroot. So beetroot contains lots of chromoplasts in them, and these chromoplasts contain a pigment called betalain, which is dark pink in color. So that's an extra information for you. You don't have to remember all of this for exam. Just know that vacuoles in different plants are modified to store different things. But in general, they store the cell sap, that is sugar and water. Finally, the cell wall and plasmodesmata. So we all know that cell wall is a structure which is only found in plant cells and not animal cells. So within the cytoplasm, the Golgi apparatus helps in assembling all the cellulose, covers them with a transport vesicle, and sends them towards the cell membrane. And once the vesicle reaches the cell membrane, it will dump all the cellulose to the outside. And because of this dumping process, lots of cellulose fibers will get deposited on the outside of the cell, and that forms the cell wall. So the cell wall is completely permeable. Everything can pass through it. That's why after the cell wall, molecules have to face the cell membrane, which is selectively permeable. Now, between plant cells, because plant cells have to absorb water from neighboring cells very quickly during photosynthesis, the plant cells are connected to each other by narrow passages. And these passages are called plasmodesmata. One more thing you have to remember about plant cell is if you look at this image on the right hand side corner, cell 1 and cell 2 are two different cells, but when they are meeting each other, there is plasmodesmata, but there is a cementing substance in between them that is called the middle lamellae. Now, this cementing substance is also pierced through by the plasmodesmata. here. If you can look at this image on the left hand side, you can see the middle lamella is the dark green line, and the plasmodesmata is actually piercing through these middle lamellae also. So these are cell-to-cell connection points. Things from one cell can move to the other because of these plasmodesmata. And we have to always keep in mind that cell wall and plasmodesmata are not considered as organelles. They are just different structures in the cell or on the boundary of the cell. They are fully permeable, and the plasmodesmata are nothing but connections between neighboring cells. Function of cell wall and plasmodesmata is providing mechanical support and providing cell-to-cell communication pathway, mainly for water, because water has to move from root to the shoot. So these plasmodesmata help in transport of water faster to a greater surface area. Okay, we have about 8 minutes left. I wanted you to look at this slide to understand what should your next steps be. So these are the students that I have noted down have completed assignments of module 29, module 30 and module 31. Okay. Rest of you have not done these tasks. So now your focus after this class should be to work on these assignments. If you are not Pooja, Samruddhi, Sayali, Alfia, Bushra, Juhi and Urmila, leaving these students, everybody else have to work on these assignments. Okay, I'm not giving any extra work. I'm telling you to go back to your old work and check if you have submitted or not. Okay, those who have completed this work, you can either go back and do your module work, or you can ask your doubts. And those who have not, you can actually start working on these assignments. Okay. At this point, do you have any questions that you want to ask? Or is there any confusion about the names that I have mentioned over here? Any questions? Okay, so then I would share the link to this worksheet. So for those who have already completed this 29, 30 and 31 module, you can do it in your own self-study time. I don't have any deadline for this. If you want, you can mail your responses and take a feedback from me. There's a chat box.
Miss Amrita, so I just wanted to ask you, like, whatever you taught last class, have you sent that slide? Have you shared that slide with us?
No, I have always mentioned in the Edmodo post, not recently, but in the initial post I had written that if you want a recording of the old class, you have to write to me. Otherwise, I will forget whom to send, because mostly students attend. So those who don't attend, just write to me. I will send you the recording.
Okay. Do we have to attend? Do we have to send by email or WhatsApp?
Anything. Just WhatsApp me.
Okay.
I will send you the link to the class over mail or WhatsApp you, because it's just a YouTube link.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. So in the chat box, girls, what I'm doing now is just a second. Okay. In the chat box, here are the links to the worksheet that I was talking about. So Juhi, Samruddhi, Saili, Alfia, Bushra, Urmila, and Pooja. You all can actually work on this question whenever you are question paper when you are self-studying or completing your biology work. You can definitely continue doing your module work on Edmodo. Please remember, girls, that you're having 2 live classes. So you are expected to at least work on 3 modules. Whether it is an old module where you're completing your submission or a new one, you should at least have 3 assignment submissions. That is the basic expectation from all of you. With that, actually, we have completed our target for today. I also wanted to remind that when you're doing these classes, note which modules I'm talking about. So you don't have to go back and do those modules on Edmodo. You just have to do the assignments of those modules. Okay. Yes, Sakshi, I got your submission. I'll check that. Anything that you want to ask, I'm waiting. We have another 4 minutes. Or you
Miss
can straight
Amrita.
away go to the Edmodo and start working. You can keep yourself on mute. Someone is asking something.
Yeah, I was just saying that. Can you send me the recording of last class?
Who is this? Sorry.
It's me, Juhi.
I will send you. So those who are absent, I'm going to actually take some time because it's a long recording. It will be uploaded on YouTube. So wait for a couple of hours and I have a class after this, and after that I can share it with all of you, those who are absent. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Others, please ask any questions regarding what we were taught today, or you have anything to share about this topic. Or if you have nothing to share, you can also say that I have no questions, so that I know that you're thinking. Okay. So I think that's it for today. I hope your class time that you dedicated for this class was effective. I hope you got to clarify some doubts through this discussion. Thank you for participating when I asked questions and you responded promptly. That's all for today. And bye bye. Thank you, everyone.